Hello and welcome to today's panel discussion. Our topic is investments in blockchain gaming. I am Bila Pandya with Forte Labs Inc. I shall be your moderator. Gaming is one of the fastest growing industries right now, and blockchain provides a set of possibilities through open and trusting environment. The virtual and digital currencies both are backed by funding. The murky waters of traditional financing are daunting enough, and now we are in the uncharted territory of blockchain gaming. To help us navigate through these nuances and simplify the process, we have two esteemed panelists with us today. I'll introduce them and I will read their bios really quick so that I don't miss out on their very vast and interesting experience. Our first guest today is Brad Gibson. He is currently a partner at Initialized. He has co-founded Drawyr, a browser drawing startup. He has also successfully sold two of his blog platforms to Twitter, and he has founded VCSO8, a patch Slingset, a blog community site. He is currently as an operating partner with Initialized, helps portfolio companies to build really strong teams as well as a strong software. Welcome, Brad. Our second guest is Alexis Bonte. He is currently a group COO with Stillfront, and he is focused on operations as well as he co-leads game studios with his group CEO. He also supports the firm's M&A and strategy. Alexis was previously a CEO of eRepublik Labs, which is now currently part of Stillfront. And as Atomic VC, he has sourced investments in Spain and France, in gaming as well as in consumer verticals, and he supports portfolio companies to accelerate growth. He is also on the board of OPB as well as Tezo Foundation. Welcome, Alexis. Both of you have a very similar trajectory in the sense that you have been entrepreneurs, you have your own successful startups, incubated them, had a successful exits, and now into the entrepreneurs, venture capitalists. Alexis, walk me and describe me your journey. Founder, operator, investor.
Yeah, no, thank you very much for the introduction, Bella. It was very kind. No, I mean, I think it's just a natural course of things. When I first started, my first startup, I think, was in 1998. The first internet wave. I tried to do eBay in Europe. It was called TradeOK.com. It was a miserable failure. I knew nothing. I didn't know how to set up a tech team. I didn't know how to lead a project. I didn't know how to raise funds. I call it my accelerated MBA. It was probably about the same cost as an MBA, so it was fine. And then I was very lucky to join a company called Lastminute.com, which was one of the first kind of big internet startups. Last company to do the IPO before the bubble burst. Then so you learn a lot of things as you go. And then, with Lastminute.com being one of the very few, one of the first internet unicorns in Europe with a $1.1 billion exit, I was able to choose whatever I wanted to do. My childhood dream was always to do video games. And so that's what I started to do. And also, as I was doing that, that's when I started doing some angel investing. And just naturally, different people, that you meet. And of course, I had no idea how to do it properly. I had no idea how to do what you need to do to have in a term sheet. I didn't know anything about portfolio approach. I put too much money in one company, then didn't have enough money for the other companies. So all of those, kind of basic mistakes, which means that when I had my second exit with eRepublik Labs, I decided to have a much more, how should I say it, pragmatic and professional approach to my investing. That's why I joined, Atomico as a venture partner to understand how it's properly done, and started doing, kind of angel investing in the proper way and all that. So I think it's something that you learn. Basically, it's probably being an entrepreneur is something that you have in yourself or you don't, and then you just make it happen. And being an investor is something that it's an acquired taste, an acquired passion, and something that you learn.
Thanks, Alexis. Brett, I'm really fascinated. You actually graduated in philosophy, and from philosophy to founder to now an investor. I'm all ears. Tell me about it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no. So my philosophy degree wasn't terribly monetizable in the marketplace. So I ended up kind of working at a pizza place, and didn't think that was, long term where I wanted to be. So I taught myself to program, and luckily, I was lucky enough to have a friend who worked at a San Francisco-based startup, and they were willing to take a risk on me based on his recommendation. So. And then from there, I just, I think I moved from just engineer at a company to founder because I didn't really want to have a boss for at first. And so I spent most of my career, writing code in founding or CTO role at small startups. And the one of which you mentioned is Posterous, which ended up, being acquired by Twitter.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then I guess the path to VC was pretty fortuitous too. I think my co-founder at Posterous was Gary Tan, who founded Initialized Capital, and so I guess I say that I ended up at VC just by virtue of knowing Gary. He was working at Y Combinator, and I joined him there and wrote some more software, kind of all the internal software systems. And then when we both left. He went on to, raise a larger Fund 3 for Initialized, and soon after I followed him again and joined. So we're an early stage kind of generalist venture capital firm. We invest across mostly in software based startups, and we're pretty interested in engaged in crypto. So.
Yeah, that brings me to my next question. Why blockchain? What got you into the blockchain space? Brett.
Yeah, I mean, it's everyone's got like kind of the rabbit hole thing story. So, I guess the first time I ever bought into the assets is because as a founder who was previously funded by Y Combinator, I was willing just to try out other YC startups, and one of them happened to be Coinbase. So I thought, hey, I'll support these guys. And then actually, Gary and I, when Twitter ended up shutting down Posterous. So we started a new project called Posthaven to maintain all of the our old customers' blogs online, and our promise is to keep it online indefinitely to the extent we're able to affect that. So as part of that, we did a bunch of deep research, and Gary had me look like, can we host this in some sort of decentralized way? And this is before I joined Initialize in around 2016. And at the time, I think there was an emphatic no, the technologies are not ready, but there's something here. And there's definitely something to this ecosystem that I find interesting. And so when I joined Initialize, I was kind of the lead on reading white papers and sort of took over crypto for the firm.
Got it. Thanks. Alexis, tell me, how do you feel about blockchain gaming? What are your thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, I got into blockchain through gaming, and the reason I got into it through gaming was really when the first game that we designed. We're only a very small team. We were a team of 6 people back in 2007, and we did this game called eRepublic.com, which was a virtual version of the real world on browser. We kind of whole in-game economy. You could create your own company. You could run for politics. You could do all these sort of things. I wanted to do like a civilization with real people on the internet. If for people who are out there who are players, it's a miracle the game is still working and there's still lots of people playing it because it was really poorly designed. But it did kind of make me think about virtual economies and how they work, and and virtual assets, and how can you, because people, there's players in eRepublic.com, they've been playing for 12, 13, 15 years every day. It's a major investment, and they really create something. So when I saw the first kind of blockchain initiatives and blockchain efforts and all this sort of stuff, I just naturally got interested. And then there's two funny stories there. So obviously, like everybody, I bought some Bitcoin in, early on when it was quite difficult to buy, completely forgot about it. And then I met the central banker of a fairly large European country, and I'm not going to name who he is. And he said that all his savings were in Bitcoin. And I was like, oh, wow, I should probably find out where I left those Bitcoins. And then I just got back into it through that. And then obviously, when I joined Atomico, one of the things I said I wanted to look at was to basically look at what was happening with crypto, what was happening with blockchain economy, and kind of look what was out there. And also now through Stillfront, we have 14 studios now, 35 large games. We're a fairly large company now, practically $3 billion market cap. So obviously, we're very interested, being a free-to-play, games company, in what's happening, what's coming next. And I do think that there's interesting. We're still very early, but there's interesting things coming from blockchain gaming.
Got it. Thanks. Brett, could you help us understand, because right now we see enthusiasm in the blockchain, but we do see that the adoption and the scaling, all of that is yet to come. So we see investors being hesitant to go into the blockchain space. So can you explain to us what is it that you as an investor look for in a blockchain project?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, I understand some of that hesitancy, and I think that we're still largely in an infrastructure phase for a lot of what's going on in the blockchain space, and user-facing applications. We're going to need to build out infrastructure such that they're not, it's not just an abstraction that they're on a blockchain. It actually is providing some sort of meaningful value. And so I mean, for us, I think, things that are building out, infrastructure and or have a path to sort of near-term revenue models are what we're most interested in. I think there's a lot of risk in the industry around building on top of a platform that is itself moving, which introduces this kind of external path dependency, which is a very hard thing for a startup to navigate, and especially to reason about on what kind of timeline they'll be able to get their product to market and working.
Good, thank you. And Alexis, for you, what do you look for as a vision of a project into the blockchain gaming? What are the things that you want to see in that project as an investor?
Yeah, so for me, and I kind of shared the story that after my first few blockchain meetings at Atomico, usually my my kind of scouting meetings with new companies, used to be between half an hour and an hour, and the blockchain meeting was always a joke that it was like 15-minute slot, because very often after the first 5 minutes I knew I was not interested, because one of the first questions I would always ask is, why does this need to be on the blockchain? And 95% of the time I couldn't get a good answer. So big saving of time. For every 9 either crazy scientist or crazy gold gold rush mentality type of person, you would get one really smart and interesting team that knew what they were doing. But to me, the kind of key element that I always look for, and that most of the time was missing, was I'm looking for solutions that, first of all, that you look at it from the user perspective, that really make it completely seamless for the user. The user doesn't care whether he's on blockchain or not. He wants to be on something that just works, and what is this giving me, and that just gives him something extra. So I look at, is it seamless for the user? Does it bring additional revenues or engagement or something for the game or the game platform or the service? It doesn't have to be to be a game. And does it do it in a way that can truly scale? And can you do it in a way where you're starting with a large base from the beginning? In blockchain gaming, when I ask the typical questions, okay, how many DAU do you have, and because they say, oh, we make all this revenue, and I'm like, yeah, it's just people, passing on their Ethereum to other people, and you've got 50 people doing that. So yeah, I'm looking for something that can have true scale, true critical mass, and it's hard to find because, as Brett said, we're still in the infrastructure side and phase, and as long as people will have to use things like MetaMask or things like that, this is not going to scale.
So if I'm that one of the crazy ones who's really passionate about blockchain and wants to build this game, at what point in time should I come to the VC, ask for a funding? Like, what is the right time for me to come and ask for a funding? Alexis?
Yeah, I think it really depends on what kind of VC you're talking about. I think if you speaking with Brett and you're looking for Series A and Series B, you better have a product that is starting to scale that you can help accelerate. If you are looking at, people are looking maybe at angel investing like myself, then, I can probably come in a bit earlier. And, and if you have a very strong concept, an early prototype, and they feel you in the right direction, then I would definitely look at it and, and show it to other people that are interested in doing that kind of earlier, pre-seed investment type risk. But Brett, you're the more active VC, so I'll let you answer that one.
Yeah, Brett, what time should we come to you? Like, as a founder, somebody's there in that situation. When should they come to the VC for funding?
Yeah, I mean, so I guess there's a few points there. One is, as Initialize, we don't actually do a lot of specific game funding, and so we are believers in gaming as a space. Just from a high level aspect standpoint, we think that asset ownership in gaming is meaningful, and blockchain actually puts teeth to that in a way that eventually users are going to care about. And so we've done investments in the blockchain gaming space, primarily in Horizon Blockchain Games, who are building out a platform for asset ownership along with Skyweaver Game to exercise the platform they're building. So I say that to say that we're not experts in milestones for game investment. It's a slightly different lens, and I think I think certainly at the Series A, Series B level, it aligns a lot with Alexis is saying. It's very metrics driven, very much about DAUs and how much you're monetizing those people, what your cost of acquisition is. On the infrastructure side, I think we're willing to invest a little earlier because we think that, building out a platform that can host multiple games, is a slightly different business model. But yeah.
Yeah, and sorry if I could just quickly add something
Absolutely.
very quickly.
Yes.
And another angle, obviously, since I'm on the board of the Tezos Foundation, if you come to me from an angle where you can really do something special with the Tezos blockchain protocol, then I'll always be interested in looking at it.
Yeah, and I would say, like, certainly Alexis, people do like Alexis who are doing the very early stage, or have the sensibilities around what makes a good game. And I'm more of a technical person. I don't claim to be able to sort of pick out the magic super early on.
No, that's true. And that really brings me to a good point, Alexis, that in case of blockchain, what other opportunities are there for the founders to access to any additional fundraise and additional funding opportunities? So one of the things definitely you talked about was Tezos. Any other area, something else you can comment on, both Brad and Alexis? So that would be really, because one of the things definitely is the traditional route, but blockchain also opens up other opportunities for founders to get funding.
Yeah, well, I know that the guys at Forte, they have this program that helps emerging game studios or existing game studios, go into blockchain. So I think that's one way. Tezos and other protocols, will often support you if you're going to use their protocol to do something. So that's another way. but you should not rely only on that. That's my main advice. There's a lot of grant hunters out there, and that's not a business model to build something. And then look at who's been already investing in blockchain. A lot of people know I've invested in the Sandbox project and many others, and usually we will know other people that are interested in the space, and if you convince one of us to look at this carefully, then more likely you can get others.
Got it. Brett, any recommendation of avenues? You're also into blockchain infrastructure. Definitely, if you can throw some light on that aspect too.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would echo a lot of what Alexa said there. Like the layer, all these layer ones are hungry for usage and hungry for people building on top of them. So, if you have something meaningful to bring to the table, I think that games are certainly within their purview for all their grant programs. That's not a sustainable funding mechanism, but it could help you get your start. I think that I think the hope is that some of these, as infrastructure matures, some of these systems will make the games a little bit easier to monetize. I mean, I'm not an expert in game monetization, as perhaps Alexis is, so it's probably a complex and slightly hand wavy topic there. And I don't know. I think it is a hard moment because people that are used to funding more traditional games are looking for things that match what they're used to funding, right? So they're not willing just to suspend disbelief about the metrics they're looking for because blockchain. So I think in the near term, more of the kind of independent developer kind of early funding is going to come from the crypto community.
Got it. And I think that's what we have also been seeing, that it definitely is echoing to what you are saying, Brad. So on that note, if since both of you have been entrepreneurs and into the VC, what are, and not necessarily just in gaming, but generally, what are the pitfalls as a founder that I should be wary of? What would you caution them initially when I start off with this? Brett?
I mean, there's a lot. I guess the funny thing about startups is there's a lot of ways to die, right? And maybe and perhaps it's been said that perhaps like the way to succeed is just avoid kind of all of them. I think one thing that early on, one of my first startups, Linkset, was kind of not doing super great. We were fundraising around the time that the 2008 when all the markets were collapsing. And I think one thing that comes to mind, I sort of remember, is that it was there's often sometimes as a founder a morale gap you can fall into where you start to think maybe you don't have more options, and there's always kind of something you can do. I think we had this weird blind spot around that, and there's always more doors you can knock on and more things you can try. It has to be balanced against, going too deep on pursuing an idea that's sort of a dead end, but just kind of keeping your mind open to resourcefulness is, I think, an important founder trait.
Yeah.
Thanks, Brett. Alexis?
Yeah, I'll second everything that Brett said. And in terms of listing the pitfalls, there's just so many of them that I'm not even going to try listing the number of pitfalls. I think if there's one thing, and it's a bit of a cliche, but I could say, is it's very easy, I think, to be either overconfident or underconfident in how things are going, because it's a very emotional ride. I kind of compared the adventure of being an entrepreneur in a startup like a Rocky Balboa movie, except you only get to do the first scene where the guy is just punching your face all the time. And then all of a sudden, after 12 rounds, you're still standing and you don't understand how you won, right? Somehow. So it's really, really hard. But I think the key thing I've learned is it's really about who are the people that you surround yourself with and just how strong they are. And so the key thing is really hire very slowly, and fire very quickly. I think that's the key thing, because it's really about who's making the journey with you, and you're going to make mistakes. So minimize the number of mistakes that you make in terms of the people that are on your team. And if you've made a mistake, correct it very, very quickly.
Got it. That's really very helpful advice from the two of you. So thank you. One more thing is that when you talk about scaling, one of the things that definitely resonates is like, hey, when I want to scale, I've started a startup. I now want to be into the scaling mode. How should the gears be shifted from the CEO perspective? Alexis?
Yeah, so I think the first temptation that I always see, and I'll see everybody make the same mistake, and I made the mistake, is again, when you start seeing everything's going well and you want to scale, and if you're VC backed, your VCs, they are not interested in the 3-4 times return, they're interested in the 10 times return, sorry, yeah. Brett, minimum. So they're like pushing you, they're saying, oh, you're profitable, we don't care about this, just spend everything you have, growth. And then you start hiring many people, you start launching lots of new projects, and you lose sight of what made you successful in the beginning because you lose focus. So I think the number one mistake that everybody makes when they're scaling is they don't realize that they just need to continue doing exactly the same thing that got them to that place, and be very pragmatic and do baby steps and be relentless about keeping the focus and just hiring very slowly just the key people that make them do a qualitative jump. That's when you do. And most people, what they do is they take almost a machine gun approach. They hire, a lot of people very quickly. They launch these new projects, and it ends in tears after 2. It looks good for a year. 2 years afterwards, they've got to downsize, fire half the people, and start again. This is what I see 90% of the time.
Got it. Brett, in your case, when you work with the portfolio and help them build strong teams and how do you proceed with that? What is your take on it?
One thing that comes to mind is I think a lot of builders, especially and technical people, have trouble letting go of their role as an individual contributor on their team as they grow, and they wait too long to sort of internalize the notion that their output is now that of their team, and that they can't kind of personally take over things, and that they simply cannot grow the organization unless they find people they trust to run the different departments of their startup. And that kind of dovetails back to what Alexis was saying about hire slowly the best people, because part of that is hiring. You need to hire people that you feel like they can do the job better than you, right? So, or otherwise you're just going to be in their hair and you're not going to let go, and you're not going to be able to grow an organization past a certain level.
Got it.
I think that's a super point from Brett. Sorry, I'm going to just build on that. I think the key thing is, how do you as a founder scale alongside your organization? And the only way to do that is to get out of the way, hire better people, they take your place, and you're basically reinventing your job as you scale. And I think that's a great point that Brett made, and things start working when you're able to do that.
Absolutely. And those are really good factors to think. So now, thinking that we are in the pandemic right now and what's going around, how is that enabling, disenabling the innovation, invention, and how would it impact blockchain? More adoption, less adoption? Brett?
Yeah, I guess I don't have a super clear picture. I mean, certainly we've seen a lot of companies with a lot of people with a lot of time at home that have been pretty productive in churning out code and the like. In terms of specific application use cases of blockchain, it's not super clear to me. I think there's always been this kind of narrative around management of supply chain. And through the blockchain, and I think some of the cryptographic primitives kind of lend themselves well, but still it hasn't really played out in practice too much. I think I think that the current situation is kind of moving maybe too fast for this industry to be stepping in.
Okay, Alexis, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, actually, I think some of the the kind of decentralized approach, decentralized organization approach that that is key to blockchain, I think is going to resonate with a lot more people going forward, because we've literally all become decentralized organizations. We're all working from home, so I think more people are going to start thinking differently. So maybe there's a different approach in the philosophy of how we do things that might accelerate things a little bit, but in the end, it takes the right infrastructure to be in place, and there's still work to be done there.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, definitely. There's certainly the mistrust, the increased mistrust of government does bring some more philosophical alignment with some of the principles of the blockchain space.
So one question was this: what would you have somebody told you 10 years ago? What would that be? Do you have any comments on that? If somebody would have to say something to you 10 years ago, what would that have been?
It's going to be okay.
It's going to be okay.
It's going to be really, really, really tough, but it will be okay in the end, and the journey will be worth it.
Okay. Brett?
Yeah, I mean, it was actually back to the point I was kind of making earlier, but I think if they were to phrase it, it's keep trying. You'll figure it out. Don't throw in the towel. You have more options. Think it through.
Buy Bitcoin would have been helpful as well.
Yes, that would have been a lovely advice.
So any other advice, recommendation you have for those enthusiasts who are into blockchain gaming and want to continue and push forward? Any piece of recommendation and advice? Brett?
I think at a high level, what is inspiring, all of the sort of UX problems and the ability, the gaps that make it hard for more mainstream audiences to use blockchain systems. For all that, it's still a space with a bunch of extremely engaged, extremely talented people. And so, I think at the end of the day, I'm very hesitant to bet against that. So, if you're energized and into building stuff and you've got a great idea for a game, and you're surrounded by other talented people, just go for it. I think the industry is figuring the things out one by one, and you should follow what resonates with you.
Yeah, and on my end, I think it's in the same line. Is kind of, I think, all of today's struggles that you're facing and all of the things that you're learning, they will pay. They will pay later in the day when you will basically know what everyone else doesn't know about this space. So it might be tough right now, but internet was very tough, in 2001, 2002 after the bubble burst, and the people that stuck with it and did very well. So it's in moments like this that great companies are built and great things are done. So just stick with it.
Got it. Any other last minute thoughts? Anything else that you would want to add to our viewers, our people attendees at the conference? Brett or Alexis?
I don't think so.
No, I'm good. Enjoy it.
Okay. So I thank both of you for your time today and giving us this excellent opportunity to get some insights from your end. And I thank San Francisco Blockchain Week to give us this opportunity. Thank you.
Yeah,
thanks
a lot. That's great.